The restaurant was named L'Orangerie, and it smelled of old money. It was the kind of place where the silence was heavy, broken only by the delicate clinking of silver against fine china and the low hum of deals being struck in the shadows. The chandeliers didn't just light the room, they judged it. At the center table, the best seat in the house, sat Ricardo. He was a man who didn't just occupy space, he consumed it. He was the most influential Mexican businessman in the city, or at least, that's what he told everyone within earshot. Tonight, however, the stakes were higher. Across from him sat Klaus, a German investor with eyes like ice and a demeanor that was impossible to read. Ricardo was putting on a show. He laughed too loudly, gestured too broadly, and drank his wine with a theatrical flair that made the waiters nervous. "You see, Klaus," Ricardo boomed, switching between English and Spanish to show off, "business in Mexico is an art form. It requires culture, sophistication, something I picked up during my years in Switzerland. Did I mention I speak 5 languages?" Klaus nodded politely, cutting his steak with precise surgical movements. "You mentioned it, Ricardo. 3 times. Ricardo ignored the subtle jab. He was too busy admiring his own reflection in the window. He needed this deal. He needed Klaus's millions to save his company from a debt he had hidden from everyone. But instead of showing humility, he wore arrogance like a shield. 5 languages, Klaus, 5! Most people here can barely speak one correctly," Ricardo sneered, looking around the restaurant with disdain. "It separates the leaders from the followers." Klaus took a sip of water, his expression bored. He had met 100 Ricardos, men who built statues of themselves before they even laid the foundation. He was about to check his watch when a sudden movement caught his eye. A small figure was weaving through the tables. It was a girl, no older than 10, wearing a faded dress that had been washed too many times. She carried a wicker basket filled with hand-wrapped chocolates. She moved like a ghost, trying to be invisible to the staff but visible to the patrons. She stopped at Ricardo's table. Her hands were small, rough from work, and trembling slightly. "Excuse me, gentlemen," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "Would you like to support us by buying a small chocolate? They are handmade." Ricardo stopped mid-sentence. He looked at the girl not with kindness, but with the annoyance of someone who just found a fly in their soup. He leaned back, picking his teeth with a look of utter disgust. "You sell chocolates, here?" he scoffed, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "Child, look around. Does this look like a market to you? We are discussing millions of dollars and you are interrupting with candy." The girl lowered her head, clutching the basket tighter. "I am sorry, sir. I only wanted to help my mother. She is sick." The other men at the table chuckled nervously, following Ricardo's lead. It was a pack mentality. When the alpha laughs, the hyenas follow. Only Klaus didn't laugh. He stopped eating and watched the girl with an intensity that went unnoticed by Ricardo. "Come on, Ricardo," Klaus said, his accent thick but clear. "Let her be. She shows initiative. Perhaps she is a better salesperson than you think." Ricardo's ego flared. He hated being corrected, especially in front of an audience. He looked at the girl, then at Klaus, and a cruel idea formed in his mind. He wanted to regain control. He wanted to humiliate the girl to show his dominance. He leaned forward, a predator toying with prey. "You think she has potential, Klaus? Fine, let's test it." Ricardo pulled a heavy checkbook from his jacket pocket. He slammed it onto the table. "Listen to me, little girl. I like games, so let's play one." He pointed a manicured finger at her face. "You see this man? He is German. If you can sell him these chocolates speaking in his language, I will write you a check for 100,000 pesos right now." The whole room held its breath. Before we see who wins this battle, hit subscribe if you believe arrogance deserves a lesson. The table erupted in laughter. It was a cruel, sharp sound. 100,000 pesos. It was a fortune. It was more money than that girl would see in 10 years. Ricardo knew it was an impossible task. He just wanted to watch her stutter, cry, and run away so he could look powerful. "Do you really mean it, sir?" the girl asked. Her eyes, previously cast down, locked onto his. They were dark, deep, and strangely calm. "Of course," Ricardo smirked, waving his hand dismissively. "I am a man of my word. Speak German, get the money, don't speak it. Get out and learn a lesson about knowing your place." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the waiters stopped moving. Klaus adjusted his suit jacket, leaning in. He saw something in the girl's posture that Ricardo was too blind to see. The girl took a deep breath. She closed her eyes for a second, centered herself, and then opened them. She turned to Klaus, and then she spoke. "Guten Abend, mein Herr," she began. Her voice was transformed. It wasn't the timid whisper of a street vendor. It was clear. It was precise. "Diese Schokolade wird nach einem alten Familienrezept hergestellt with Kakao aus Chiapas." Ricardo's smile froze. It didn't fade. It just stuck there, like a mask that had lost its glue. The girl continued, her German flawless. She described the notes of the chocolate, the texture, the history of the cacao. Her pronunciation wasn't just good, it was native. It had the rhythm and the guttural depth that takes years to master. Klaus's eyes went wide. He wasn't just impressed, he was mesmerized. The men at the table looked back and forth between the girl and Ricardo, their mouths slightly open, unable to understand the words but fully understanding the situation. Ricardo sat paralyzed. His brain was scrambling, trying to find an explanation, a trick, a way out. When she finished, the girl gently took a chocolate wrapped in gold foil and placed it on Klaus's plate. "Das ist genau das, worum Sie gebeten haben," she said in German, then switched back to Spanish for Ricardo. "That is what you asked for, sir." She turned her gaze to the frozen businessman. "Now, will you keep your promise?" The silence in the restaurant was deafening. It was the sound of a balloon popping in slow motion. Ricardo shifted in his seat. He laughed, but it was a dry, hollow sound that fooled no one. "Well, wow," Ricardo stammered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "That was unexpected. Someone taught you a few phrases like a parrot, eh? Very cute." He waved his hand as if shooing a fly. "It was a good joke. Very funny. You can go now, child." The girl didn't move. She didn't get angry. She just looked disappointed. Not for herself, but for him. "My mother always says that words are worth more than money, sir," she said quietly. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Klaus, who had been watching the exchange with scientific interest, suddenly turned cold. His eyes, usually unreadable, hardened into steel. "A joke?" Klaus repeated. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a judge passing a sentence. "In my country, Ricardo," Klaus continued, looking at the Mexican businessman with zero sympathy, "a man of honor does not retract his word, especially not to a child." Ricardo tried to laugh again, but it sounded like a cough. "Klaus, please, be reasonable. It's 100,000 pesos for a chocolate. It was clearly hyperbole, just banter." "You said you were a man of culture," Klaus interrupted, his voice cutting through the air. "You said you were a leader. I need partners I can trust. If you lie to a little girl because your pride is hurt, how can I trust you with a contract worth millions?" Ricardo felt the walls closing in. He looked at his business partners, but they looked away, suddenly finding the tablecloth very interesting. He was alone. The girl took a small step back. She looked tired. "Don't worry, sir," she said, her voice trembling slightly now. "I don't need your money if it comes with hate. I just wanted to sell chocolate, not humiliate anyone." That sentence, "not humiliate anyone," hit Ricardo harder than a slap in the face. Here was a child, poor and hungry, showing more dignity in 5 seconds than he had shown in his entire life. Klaus stood up. He buttoned his jacket slowly. "I cannot do business with a man who has no honor. My values are not for sale." Panic exploded in Ricardo's chest. The deal, the millions, his reputation. It was all slipping away because of a stupid bet, because of his ego. "Klaus, wait!" Ricardo stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Don't ruin this over a misunderstanding." "It is not a misunderstanding," Klaus said coldly. "It is a revelation." Ricardo looked at the girl. He looked at the German. He looked at the checkbook still lying on the table. For the first time in years, the mask cracked. He saw himself, not the powerful CEO, but a small, insecure bully. Maybe it was the fear of losing the deal. Maybe it was the shame burning his cheeks. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the clear, honest eyes of the girl named Maria. Ricardo sat down heavily. He picked up his pen. His hand was shaking. "What is your name?" he mumbled. "Maria, sir." He wrote the date. He wrote the name. He wrote the amount. 1,000,000. He tore the check from the book. The sound was crisp and final. "Here," Ricardo said, handing it to her. He didn't look at her. He couldn't. "And, I apologize, I should not have mocked you." A murmur went through the room. A few people clapped softly, but most just watched in stunned reverence. Klaus didn't sit down, but his expression softened. He nodded. "Now I can shake your hand, Ricardo, because a man who fixes his mistake is worth more than a man who pretends he never makes them." Maria took the check with two hands, looking at it as if it were an alien object. She smiled, a genuine, radiant smile. "My mother says when someone keeps their word, the sky gets happy." Klaus ordered 2 boxes of chocolates. He paid for them, and then he pulled a sleek business card from his pocket. "Little one," Klaus said gently, "when you grow up, if you want to study languages in Europe, show them this card. I will help you." "Really?" Maria gasped. "Absolutely," Klaus replied, looking around the room. "A mind like yours belongs in a university, not selling candy to fools." The room erupted in applause. Real applause this time. Ricardo sat back, eyes glassy. He had lost money, yes, but as he watched the girl leave, clutching her basket and her future, he realized he had gained something else, a lesson, a painful, expensive, necessary lesson. He created a scholarship program the following month. He named it The Value of a Word. Years later, he received a letter. It was written in perfect German calligraphy. "Thank you, Mr. Ricardo. Because you paid your debt, I am now teaching others that languages are bridges, not barriers." Ricardo smiled. It was the best investment he had ever made. You never know who is standing in front of you. A poor dress can hide a rich mind, and a rich suit can hide a poor soul. Appearances deceive, but integrity? Integrity is the only currency that matters everywhere in the world.